Section 2. The City of Half-Peace. Working title: The Boy Who Walked Toward Hope. The morning Lami arrived in the city, the sky was the color of pale smoke, the kind that rises gently after a long night of cooking fires. It wasn't a beautiful sunrise, but it wasn't a harsh one either. It was a half-light, half-shadow kind of morning, a perfect mirror of the place he had entered. People called the city the place of half-peace. Not because peace lived there fully, but because peace visited from time to time, like a traveler who rests briefly before moving on again. Shops stood with their metal shutters half open. Soldiers walked in slow, watchful steps. Children ran barefoot across dusty lanes, chasing one another with shrieks of laughter. Mothers bartered loudly at vegetable stalls. Old men sat near corners, praying or arguing softly about things no one else remembered. Everything felt alive, yet slightly wounded. Warm, yet cautious. Full of hope, yet scared of hope. And into this trembling balance walked Lami, thin, dusty, and carrying a silence too heavy for a boy of 9. A corner that became a home. Lami wandered for hours, drifting with the movement of the crowd, until the road curved toward a row of small shops. There, beside a blue-doored kiosk, selling tea leaves, spices, and soap bars, sat an elderly man with a long gray beard and a calm face, Haji Musa. Haji Musa watched the boy for a while, his eyes sharp but kind. "You're alone," he said gently. It wasn't a question. Lami nodded. Haji Musa pointed to the narrow space behind his shop, a small wedge between a cracked wall and a stack of old crates. "You can sleep there. It is not much, but it is safe enough." Then he added, "No one will chase you away, not here." That night, Lami lay on a flattened cardboard sheet. He could hear everything: vendors calling out, goats bleating, bajaz buzzing past like angry bees, children crying themselves to sleep, and radios playing distant songs from windows he couldn't see. The sounds frightened him at first, but they also held him like the heartbeat of a giant creature who meant no harm. He pressed his knees to his chest and whispered, "Mother, if you're alive, I'm still walking." The city, with all its noises, seemed to hush slightly as if listening. A skill born from survival. The next morning brought the smell of roasted coffee and dust. Lami watched a boy his age, maybe a bit older, sitting under a broken umbrella, shining shoes with practiced hands. The boy's name was Absa, tall, quiet, sharp-eyed. His movements were calm and almost elegant. Lami stood nearby, watching every motion, the rhythm of the brush, the swirl of the cloth, the way Absa wiped sweat from his brow without stopping his work. Absa finally raised his head. "You want to work?" he asked. Lami hesitated, then nodded. Absa handed him a small wooden box with a cracked lid. "Start with this one," he said. "Sit beside me. Work clean. People respect clean work. Don't speak too much. Your hands will speak for you." And so Lami began. He fumbled at first, rubbing too fast or too slow, leaving streaks on the leather, forgetting to brush the dust first. But he improved. Every day, every hour. He discovered that he had gentle hands, the kind that paid attention, that touched with care, that made people feel respected. Soon customers said, "Let the quiet boy do it. His hands are brighter than the polish." And the name spread. The quiet boy with bright hands. It wasn't much, but to Lami, it felt like the beginning of a new identity. One he had shaped himself, not one forced by fear or loss. Seeds of education. By the time Lami turned 12, he had a small routine. Work in the early morning, work in the evening, save every coin he could, eat little, sleep lightly. One morning, after counting his earnings, a small pile of silver and copper coins, he felt something new stir inside his chest. A desire, a forgotten joy. "I want to learn again." School had once been the happiest part of his childhood, his mother brushing dust from his shirt, his father smiling softly as he handed him a pencil, the smell of chalk, the sound of children chanting answers together. He walked to a nearby school, his heart thumping like a small drum. At the office sat Sartu, the deputy head teacher, gentle-faced, with eyes as patient as rain-soaked soil. She looked at him for a long moment. "Where are your parents?" she asked quietly. Lami swallowed, feeling a familiar ache. "I don't know," he whispered. Sartu's expression softened. You want to study? Yes, he said. Then you will, she answered firmly. We will find a place for you. Her voice carried a kind of strength that Lami had almost forgotten existed in adults. The strength of someone who believes in goodness, even when the world gives them reasons not to. He joined a class the next day. He sat in a second row, hands clasped tightly, trying to hide his nervousness. But when the teacher wrote the first word on the board, a warmth moved through him like sunlight returning after a long rainy season. Learning felt like breathing again, something his soul had been starving for. Senna, the kind light. In that same classroom sat Senna, a girl with thoughtful eyes and a soft presence. She always wore a neatly wrapped scarf, and her handwriting was so beautiful that even their teacher praised it. Senna noticed Lami before he noticed her. She noticed how he arrived at school with dusty sleeves, how he carried no lunch some days, how he rarely spoke, how his eyes darkened when the teacher mentioned family. One day after class, she walked up to him. You sit alone, she said. Why? Lami looked at the floor. He had never been good at explaining pain. Sina waited. Her silence felt gentle, not demanding. Finally, he said, My parents, I don't know where they are. I came from the village when things went bad. She didn't ask more. She didn't try to open wounds. He wasn't ready to show. She just whispered, I'm sorry. Then she added, You're stronger than you think, Lami. Those simple words stayed with him for weeks. They filled a quiet corner of his heart, a place where loneliness had built a nest. From then on, Sina sometimes shared roasted barley with him. Sometimes she walked home with him until their paths separated. Sometimes they just stood together under a jacaranda tree near the school gate, watching the purple petals fall like soft rain. Senna didn't rescue Lami, she didn't try. Instead, she saw him, and that was its own kind of rescue. Haji Musa greeted him each morning with, Peace, my son. Apsa shared tips about saving money and avoiding trouble. The coffee vendors teased him, calling him the little businessman. Bajaj drivers waved at him as if he were part of their crew. Shopkeepers with Muslim names, people like Abdul Rahman, Yusuf, Wakila, kept an eye on him from a distance, making sure the streets were safe enough for a hard-working boy. People in the marketplace often said, This boy is not loud, but he shines more than the sun. And Lami, without realizing it, grew. He grew in confidence, he grew in hope, he grew in the quiet belief that maybe, just maybe, the world still had space for him. He never forgot his mother, he never stopped wondering about his father, but the pain no longer suffocated him. It lived inside him softly like a fading bruise. At night he would sit outside Haji Musa's shop, watching the stars appear above the patchwork rooftops. He would breathe deeply, close his eyes and whisper, I'm still walking, I'm still learning, I'm still hoping. And the city with its broken windows, its kind strangers, its blue Bajaj buzzing like hopeful insects, seemed to whisper back, Yes, Lami, keep walking, your story is only beginning.